Falling into hollow earth isn't flying, it's just waiting to die. My boots hit the ice, shattering my sensors. Ahead, a white wall started breathing. Shimo. Pinned by molten chains that hissed like vipers. We were too late. But then, a blue spark in the dark. One glowing eye, small, defiant. Then Skar King's whip snapped. Darkness won. My pulse is fading. Falling into the hollow earth isn't flying. It's just a long, terrifying way to die until the gravity flip kicks your ribs. I pulled the wing cord just as the cave's ice teeth tried to swallow me whole, snapping my spine straight at 200 knots. I hit the frost hard, tasting copper and freezing dust, praying my suit's life support wouldn't flatline. When I wiped the slush off my lens, the world didn't look back at me. She did. Shimo's eye was a frozen galaxy, inches from my face, pinned by red chains that hissed against her ancient scales like vipers. The air smelled like ozone and burning Titan blood. I reached out, my glove trembling, as she exhaled a cloud of absolute zero. She wasn't a monster. She was a prisoner. This wasn't a prison. It was a goddamn slaughterhouse, lit by the pulsing fever of those red chains. Dozens of them hung from the ceiling like giant ginger bats, their eyes reflecting the agonizing glow of Shimo's torment. I watched an overseer drive an obsidian spike into her open flank, channeling a surge of crimson energy that made the mountain-sized titan convulse in silent, bone-shattering agony. Behind my cover, I could smell their rot. They were feasting on raw meat, drumming on rib cages, lost in a tribal frenzy of blood and obsidian. A spear hissed past my head, showering me in sparks, but I didn't move. A scout dropped to all fours, sniffing the frozen air, inches from my hiding spot. I slowly gripped my blade. Survival isn't about bravery here. It's about being the quietest monster in the room. I crawled under Shimo's massive forelimb, expecting a crushing death, but she lifted her claws with a mother's grace. Hidden in that icy niche was a hatchling, a small, broken miracle. A shard of Skar King's red crystal was buried deep in its chest, pulsing like a malignant heart. I watched lava cracks crawl across its tiny blue body, turning beautiful scales into charred, smoking ruin. When its snout touched my tactical glove, the reinforced polymer began to liquefy. The heat wasn't just physical, it felt like a curse. Shimo tried to nuzzle the little thing, but the red infection lashed out, scorching her tongue with every touch. It was a fragile, dying star in my palm. I pulled out the Monarch injector, its blue serum glowing against the suffocating crimson. We're not saving a Titan anymore. We're fighting for a heartbeat. Silence is a luxury that just ran out. One scout on the ledge spotted me, and then the entire ceiling started to melt into a ginger avalanche of teeth and rage. I fired the flare, not for help, but to see the faces of the 100 bastards trying to kill me. For a second, the cave was a sun. Then a massive hairy palm slammed into the lens, blinding the world. Shimo roared, her tail shattering the ice bridge like glass, sending a dozen apes into the abyss. But the red chains tightened, choking the life out of her as sparks showered my neck. I grabbed the hatchling by the scruff, diving into a jagged crevice just as the spears began to rain. One blade peeled the paint off my helmet, inches from my skull. Now I'm pinned in the dark, nowhere to run. Just me, the kid, and a wall of ancient ice. The hatchling was burning up in my arms, red veins crawling toward its throat like a slow-motion execution. Through a crack in the ice, I saw Shimo's eye, massive, clouded with agony, yet focused entirely on the small life I was holding. I tried to push the injector through the gap toward her open wounds, but she nudged it back with her snout. She wasn't asking for help. She was giving up her only chance. Monarch protocols say, save the biggest asset first, but Shimo didn't give a damn about protocols. She shifted her weight, using her own body to block the hail of spears meant for us. The hatchling let out a sound like breaking glaciers. One charge left. One life. I flipped the injector to maximum, the blue light blinding in this claustrophobic hole. Sorry, big girl. I hope you're right about this. The ceiling gave way, burying us in a tomb of jagged ice and monarch-grade debris. I didn't wait. I jammed the tactical pliers into the hatchling's chest and ripped that red shard out. A spray of superheated vapor blinded me, but the injector was already home. I watched the blue plasma flood his veins, a microscopic war between Monarch's tech and Skar King's rot. The air didn't just get cold, it died. Frost raced across the walls, shattering the very molecules of the cave. My camera lens spiderwebbed from the pressure as he opened his eyes. They weren't blue anymore. They were burning with a cold, atomic sun. The shockwave tore the crevice apart, turning the surrounding apes into frozen statues mid-scream. In the center of the blast, a rose of jagged ice protected us. The king's infection was gone.
Something much older was waking up.
The hatchling's pulse didn't just save him, it echoed through the floor, a blue tidal wave hitting Shimo like a defibrillator to the soul. Her dorsal spines ignited in a blinding neon flash, vaporizing 1,000 years of frost in a single second. She lunged, and those unbreakable red chains snapped like rotten twine, sending white-hot shrapnel whistling past my head. She rose, a mountain of prehistoric fury 10 times the size of any ape in this hellhole. One breath of absolute zero turned an entire legion into a forest of transparent statues, frozen mid-scream. Then she lowered her massive limb, a silent invitation to the only human she didn't want to kill. Climbing 50 meters of jagged scales feels like scaling a living skyscraper. We stood above the graveyard, the kid perched on my shoulder. The queen is back. The victory lasted exactly 10 seconds before the air turned the color of a fresh wound. Out of the red fog, a bone whip lashed through the sky, glowing with a sickening orange heat. It wrapped around Shimo's throat, and the sound of boiling steam filled the air as fire met absolute zero. She hit her knees, nearly throwing me into the abyss. Then he stepped out. Skar King. He wasn't just a titan. He was a wiry, muscular nightmare with a smile that felt like a jagged blade. He clutched a pulsing control crystal, tightening the leash until Shimo's face was pressed into the dirt. He leaped onto her spine, walking toward me with a predator's grace, dragging that burning whip behind him. He's not here for the queen. He's looking at the kid. Skar King stood over me, his silhouette blotting out the red sky like a living eclipse. He didn't just want the kid, he wanted to savor the terror in my eyes first. He reached out with fingers tipped in obsidian, slow and deliberate. I thrust my ice axe forward, but he caught it like a toothpick, snapping the reinforced steel with a sickening crack. In the reflection of his yellowed pupils, I saw the hatchling's blue fire start to ripple. The air began to distort, a wave of absolute zero shielding us just as that burning whip descended. The bone leash turned white, brittle, and cracked like dry wood against our sphere. Skar King leaped back, his hand coated in a sudden jagged frost. He isn't just angry now, he's insulted. He's calling every shadow in this cave to crush us. The kid didn't just flash, he detonated a supernova of pure frost, turning the world into a blank, silent canvas. Shimo didn't waste her shot. She lunged, her massive frame shattering the canyon wall like a battering ram hitting balsa wood. Then came the drop. I buried my fingers into her frozen scales as gravity reclaimed us, the red hell of the arena shrinking into a tiny, blood-colored dot. We tore through the clouds of the hollow earth, a tunnel of mist and speed that felt like escaping the throat of a god. When she finally flared her fins, we glided into the emerald silence of the deep jungle. I slid off her back into the damp moss, my lungs burning with real air. Shimo's breathing is heavy, but she's alive. The kid is out cold. I looked at the lens, tasting the copper in my mouth one last time. Next time, we don't run. Next time,